And we're about to start some new thing. Maybe it's email marketing, maybe it's Facebook advertising, maybe it's Instagram stories, maybe it's a YouTube channel, maybe it's a podcast. We have to realize that that's going to take up a limited amount of time that we have every week. And therefore, to do it right or to do it decently well, we must be willing to sacrifice or give something else up so that we can achieve that something new.
You're listening to episode 138 of the Fitness Business Podcast. We'd like to thank this month's premier podcast partner, Precor, delivering industry-leading cardio, strength, functional training products and service to over 90 countries across the world. Hey everyone, welcome back and thank you so much for joining me. As you know, I am always going on about the importance of ongoing professional development. And being that I'm a little bit of a social media addict myself, there is one podcast that I have listened to for years to keep up to date with what's new in the world of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and pretty much everything in between. And that is the Social Media Marketing Podcast. The host of the show is Michael Stelzner. And he also happens to be our special guest this week. So let me tell you a little bit about Michael. He's the founder of Social Media Examiner, the author of the books Launch and Writing White Papers, and he's the man behind Social Media Marketing World, which is the industry's largest conference. He's the founder of the Social Media Marketing Society and the host of the weekly Social Media Marketing Talk Show. During today's interview, Michael explains the concept of a marketing stopping list. We talk about low cost and some no cost ways to reach your audience through social media. And the bit that I am most excited about is that he explains Facebook Watch. And we go through and discuss some ways that you can use it for your fitness business. I am really excited to bring you my interview this week with Michael Stelzner. Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, before we even start, I have to tell you something. I have become addicted to the journey.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm so excited about the journey. Do you want me to explain what it is for those that
can you tell everyone what it is?
Yeah, so I started this brand new show that people can find at journey.show. And it's an episodic documentary about my business and about the crazy mission that I'm on to try to grow my product 62% year over year and then 100% the year after that. And it's really just a short 5 to 7 minute video documentary every week about the crazy things that I do to try to accomplish, the growth of the business.
There is just something amazing about watching like a behind the scenes. I can't explain it. It's like I'm looking into your world and I'm
totally authentic. Yeah, it's not scripted, so it's real.
But I love that it's not scripted. It's just so natural, and I can't stop watching it. So
that mission accomplished.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. So guys, make sure you jump on and not only check out everything else that Michael does, but check out the journey as well, because it really is addictive. Now, that's not what we came to talk about, Michael. We came today to talk about marketing success and how we can improve by refining what works and forgetting the rest. So I want to start right from the very beginning, because there are so many ways to market a business online, and it can be really overwhelming to know where to start. So what do you suggest are the first considerations when actually determining your online marketing mix?
Well, I'm going to make a couple of assumptions here that the people that are listening have some experience with marketing. If you don't, then I'll just give you a quick little tidbit. If you have no experience with marketing, first figure out who in the world you are trying to reach and where they're hanging out online. That's kind of the starting place. But assuming you've already had a little bit of success, you know who you're trying to reach, you kind of know where they're either hanging out in your community physically or where they're hanging out online, then the next thing to ask yourself is really, what have I done in the past that works? And what have I done in the past that does not work? And start there and maybe do a pro-con kind of a chart, like or success, failure, and just write out everything you've ever done that's worked and everything you've ever done that has not worked, so you can just get it out on the table. Because so many entrepreneurs and marketers kind of forget that there's stuff we've done before, and we don't need to keep reinventing ourselves. Instead, we just need to go back and think for a little bit about what worked, so that we can think about maybe continuing to do it better.
It's a really good suggestion. I think you're right. I think sometimes we stick to doing the things that we've done before because that's what we know, as opposed to really looking at the return on investment and what's been effective in the past.
Yeah, and I think if I can dig a little deeper into this, I find, at least in my world, in the world of social media, we get kind of bright, shiny object syndrome. So every time Instagram comes out with a new update or Snapchat or whatever, it seems like everybody wants to go all in on this stuff. And what they don't think about is the consequence of time. We all have a limited amount of it. And if we choose to focus on something new, that means that we are choosing not to focus on something old that likely works. And I see a lot of marketers stuck in this chasing their tail kind of problem where they're never getting anywhere. And it's because they've overlooked the most important part of what their marketing is, which is fundamentals.
That's a really good piece of advice, Michael. Thank you so much. Now, when we were talking about this interview, the term came up, which was a marketing stopping list. Have I got that right?
Correct.
Can you talk us through that concept?
Well, let's think about this from a personal trainer's perspective, all right? Let's say I'm a little overweight and I need to lose some weight and I go to the gym and hire a personal trainer. What's the first piece of advice they're going to probably ask me? They're going to ask me, what are you eating and how active are you, right? And they're probably going to come up with a list of things that I ought to stop eating. Am I close to accurate? Or maybe types of behaviors that I ought to stop doing? So if you think about how you normally would work in the health and fitness world and how there are things that we ought to stop doing so that we can accomplish something, the same exact thing applies to entrepreneurship and to marketing. There are things that we do because we've always done it, and we always ought to consider calling those things into question. So what I often recommend that people do is, and I tell my kids the exact same thing. So like my kids always want to add a new app to their phone. And I say, okay, as long as you delete 2, you can add a new one. And they're like, what? I got to delete 2? Wait a second. Maybe I ought to think twice before adding the new one. And the same thing applies to us. When we're about to start some new thing, maybe it's email marketing, maybe it's Facebook advertising, maybe it's Instagram stories, maybe it's a YouTube channel, maybe it's a podcast. We have to realize that that's going to take up a limited amount of time that we have every week. And therefore, to do it right or to do it decently well, we must be willing to sacrifice or give something else up so that we can achieve that something new. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. So what I'm hearing, Michael, is that more is not necessarily better.
That's exactly right. Instead, different may be better. So that's the key to everything, really. Like I am constantly stopping things, which is, for example, you talked about the journey earlier, right? So in order for me to do the journey, I had to take a bunch of stuff off my plate and delegate it to someone else on my team, because this journey, this episodic documentary that I'm doing is taking 5 to 6 hours a week out of my time to actually just sit with an editor and look over his shoulder and refine this stuff, not counting the fact that he's with me filming all the time, which is kind of natural. But that's 5 or 6 hours a week I had to find without giving up on my family life, without giving up on my kids, my health, or anything else. So I literally had to cut 5 or 6 hours of work off my calendar every day in order to launch the journey.
That's really interesting you said that, because I'm pretty sure I was listening to an episode of your podcast a couple of months ago, and didn't you do the same thing with Social Media Marketing World? So you used to have
My Kids Adventures project.
Yeah, and then I vaguely remember you talking about saying having to stop one and then you were starting the other. Is that right?
I've done this so many times. So I mean, I've almost lost count, but we had this thing called the Social Media Marketing Society, and It was like the iPhone that killed the iPod, right? If you think about Apple, when they came out with the iPhone, they knew that it was going to end of life the iPod. Nobody buys iPods anymore because the iPhone does everything the iPod does and more. So the Social Media Marketing Society killed our Social Media Success Summit, which was our online conference. It was intentional. And it was by design, and we knew that it was going to end of life a different product. It was necessary because the marketing department was getting overtapped. We had too many products that we were launching at once. And by literally shutting down this significant line of revenue in our business, it allowed the entire company to focus on just the core 2 products that we offer instead of being divided amongst 3. So the one that was really not being successful anymore, that we were seeing declines, we just decided to go ahead and just axe it, kill it. A $700,000 line item we literally said goodbye to. My controller practically had a heart attack, but it turned out to be a smart move. And as a result, I was able to launch lots of new things, one of them being the Journey.
There you go. Well, Michael, I think this is a challenge. It's an easy thing to talk about, but it's a challenging thing to do because we are constantly being offered up these new platforms to be a part of or new technology that we can take advantage of. And quite often on our show, we talk about how important content creation is and that you're always putting a message out to the market. But this is probably a good reminder to everyone to have a look at, say, the platforms that they're utilizing at the moment and whether or not, and correct me if I'm wrong, but whether or not it is necessary for them to be on Snapchat and Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook, or if they need to, combine and just choose the best ones out of that.
Yeah, what I tell a lot of people is there's really two ways to solve this. One way is to stop the things that aren't working, which is the hardest thing in the world. Nobody wants to stop it. A lot of times when things aren't working, they want to double down on it because they're convinced they have to make it work. So stop things that aren't working. And we do this all the time. We're not super active on some social networks, and we are very active on other social networks because it just wasn't accomplishing our mission. Option A is to stop it. Option B is to outsource it. So what that means is you could fully delegate it to an agency or an individual or someone inside your company that can do it better than you. Either one of those are fair and adequate. But most people, tend to want to do it all themselves. And I think that stopping things is the best thing in the world. And, it's the hardest thing to do. But the more you embrace your stopping list, man, I hack things like crazy. I freak out my company because I'm constantly stopping things. But we would never be where we are today if we were not doing this pretty religiously, at least twice or three times a year.
Thank you so much for going into that, Michael. Now, quite often for gym owners or fitness professionals, especially those that are just starting out in the first couple of years of their business, they don't necessarily have a huge marketing budget. So can you give us some advice around the best use of social media that they could use to actually market their gym, their products, or their services?
Yes. First of all, Instagram is the first thing that comes to mind. There is a lot of data that shows that people are consuming Instagram stories at a pretty significant clip. There's over 500 million active users daily on Instagram, and 300 million of them are using or consuming Instagram stories. So Instagram stories, as you probably know, are those little 15-second clips of your day or whatever you want to be. They're very simple. And I would imagine for a fitness professional or a gym owner showing on Instagram workouts or any kind of progress that you're making inside your gym on redesigns or any of that kind of stuff would probably work really, really well because it's super simple. It's very, non-professional. The lighting doesn't need to be great. You just need to do it. And people are consuming these stories like crazy. And Instagram is giving more and more exposure in the Instagram newsfeed to these stories. That's the setup for another thing, which is generally speaking, using video in any kind of capacity. Get comfortable behind the camera. Get comfortable behind, raw, true, authentic video. One really good way to do it is to practice going live. You can practice on Instagram stories. The good news is they disappear after 24 hours, or you can go ahead and practice on Facebook Live, and those stick around pretty much forever. But I strongly recommend you get used to interacting with people in a live capacity. Why? Because it's okay that it's not perfect. It's expected that you're going to make mistakes. I had a fly in my mouth when I was hiking around a mountain once, and I just spit it out and everybody laughed, and I just kept walking because what are you going to do, right? So it's just that's what people love about it is it's totally raw, authentic, and real.
And you know what I love about that, Michael, is that, the question that I asked you was about, gym owners, fitness professionals that don't have a big marketing budget. And we're talking about $0, to jump onto Instagram and create videos, which will in turn allow you to really start building your community and building your followers.
Yeah. And there's a huge presence in the fitness world on Instagram. So, just look around. You won't have to look very hard to find people that are doing it well that you can model.
Absolutely. Now, I could not have Michael Stelzner on the show and not include the words Facebook algorithm somewhere. And I think it's fair to say that, the Facebook algorithm, or it feels like it, is constantly changing. It's a big question, but are there any strategies or tactics that we can use to keep engaging with our customers and our prospects without having to always use paid advertising?
Honestly, there are very few. And those few are going to become fewer and fewer in the coming months. Just recently, Facebook experimented in like 5 countries with the idea of taking Facebook page content and physically removing it from the newsfeed in totality, moving it to the Explore tab, which is a tab most people don't even know exists. And a lot of marketers like myself are saying, well, why would Facebook run an experiment if they weren't seriously considering removing all organic content from the newsfeed? So I think that we have to embrace a future where Facebook advertising may be the only way to get any kind of exposure on Facebook. That leaves us with using Facebook as a customer support vehicle where people are contacting us via Messenger. But it also does currently leave us something to do with live video. Right now, live video is just about the only thing that Facebook gives some pretty substantial newsfeed preference to. So we were talking about that on Instagram, and we're talking about it on Facebook. We are seeing declines in live video reach and exposure, but it still is pretty powerful. Now, the last thing is the Facebook Watch platform. Facebook Watch is not something you wear on your wrist like the iWatch. Instead, it is actually their answer to YouTube or to Netflix. And in 2018, they will be rolling out a actual kind of competitive solution to YouTube where you will be able to put episodic shows in what's called their watch platform, and people can subscribe, and every time one of those new episodes come out, they'll get notifications just like you do on YouTube. So if you start thinking about the idea of creating ongoing shows like I'm doing with The Journey and start kind of getting your feet wet with working with that, it could be an opportunity for you to get some new exposure because the Facebook Watch platform will be integrated into smart televisions. And, people will start to be watching, the content from the living room.
Wow, that is absolutely fascinating. So at the moment, Michael, for example, I do a fortnightly Facebook Live broadcast for our show, and we currently upload that to our YouTube channel. So what you're saying is that what I would do is do that Facebook Live and automatically upload it to Facebook Watch.
Well, not exactly. Facebook Watch will allow you to create your own show page. And that show could be your show or multiple shows that are tied to your page. So, for example, Mike Rowe, formerly of the TV show Dirty Jobs, has a show on Facebook Watch called Returning the Favor. And it's much like a really high production television show. And there are a number of shows right now. I think you can just find it at facebook.com/watch, but they're mostly high profile individuals that are currently have their own shows. And these show pages have their own, you follow people there, the episodes are released, they get notifications. It's already available, but it's really just right now limited content, high production value content, but they will be rolling it out to everyone here in 2018. So you would just link, just like a Facebook group can be linked to your page, you would link this show to your page and people would just follow the show page and get notifications automatically whenever a new show episode comes out.
That is huge.
By the way, and you could go live directly to the show page, or you could go live directly to your Facebook page, separate entities.
Okay. Can you stream to both at the same time?
Probably with third-party tools, but not currently, I don't believe, with Facebook.
That's, I'm so grateful that you shared that with us, Michael, because I think if you're talking about this kind of coming to fruition in 2018, then it gives us a really good opportunity to think about what that content might look like. If I'm a gym owner, then perhaps it's about creating a series of, exercise technique videos that you can post up there or, nutrition-based information, anything like that. That's a really good advanced
But it needs to be episodic. So the idea is it's got to be consistent. It's got to be just like television. And you know how you said you love The Journey? So if people if they go to facebook.com/smexaminer and they go under videos, they'll see The Journey. But the Journey is the kind of content that Facebook wants in their watch program. Does that make sense? It's kind of a ongoing story every week.
Yeah, it's like a series.
Exactly. If you think about how could I create a TV series, that is just going to live on Facebook, that's not all that different than what people already do on YouTube channels. So the idea is, I think the best kind of series are going to be continued kind of series. That's a little harder to do because you have to be willing to kind of have a, X number of episodes and season 1 and season 2 and all that kind of stuff. But I think that's where we're all heading, is that we're going to be creating our own content just like you might find on a cable television channel, except people will be watching it on Facebook.
Here's what's in my mind right now, Michael, and that is I'm a gym owner and I'm going to run a 90-day challenge for people to either lose weight or gain muscle. And my series could be actually tracking their journey over that period of time. So checking in with them on a regular basis. What are they eating? What are they doing? Similar to your journey. So it's behind the scenes of what that person is going through as part of that challenge.
Yeah. Or pick a person who's on a, maybe they've got a 1-year goal, and they've got this big, maybe their desire is to be in like a weightlifting show or a bodybuilding show. And they're starting out really in a crazy situation, and just maybe say, I'm going to produce like 15 episodes over the period of like 6 months. And we're going to show the good, the bad, and the ugly, and get permission from that person and just take them through the entire journey. And I think people would love that kind of stuff. And we've seen that kind of stuff on television, typically like condensed down to maybe a 1 hour or 2 hour show, but this could be split into like 5 or 10 minute episodes over many, many weeks.
I am so excited about this. That's a really exciting concept. So thank you so much for going into that with us today, Michael. And I want to say, I said it to you offline when we weren't recording, but to have you on the Fitness Business Podcast is an amazing privilege. You were one of the very first podcasts that I started listening to years ago. So personally, I'm absolutely thrilled and honored that you would come onto our show. So thank you so much for joining us, going into that detail all around teaching us about the marketing stopping list and talking about how we can get onto Instagram stories and start to using Facebook Watch. So thank you so much for joining us, Michael.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Okay, everyone. So make sure that you do jump on and check out Michael's podcasts, books. Definitely check out The Journey, because that is sensational. And there's one last thing I want to finish on, and that is if anyone wants to dive into more detail around that Facebook algorithm, which we briefly touched on then. Michael, I was listening. You did a fantastic show, and I'm trying to work out what the show number is. It was called The Facebook Algorithm Explained. And that was only recently.
I can give you a short URL to get to it.
That would be brilliant.
It's socialmediaexaminer.com/274. That'll get you directly there.
274. And we will, of course, put that in today's show notes. Michael Stelzner, thank you so much for joining us on the Fitness Business Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, this is Thomas Dean from Preco. We deliver premium products and industry-leading service to over 90 countries across the world. If you have a club in Asia-Pacific countries, then I would love to help you with your equipment needs. You can contact me at www.preco.com or email me at thomas.ding@amersports.com.
Thank you once again to Michael. I am really excited about the potential of Facebook Watch for the fitness industry. As we're releasing this show in November 2017, it is still early days. And I've got to tell you, if I owned a gym right now, or if I was working as a PT, trying to grow my brand and my following, I would be jumping on this right away and starting to plan a series for 2018. Now, before we head into this week's bonus news update, here's a message from ABC Financial. ABC Financial leads the health and fitness industry in software and payment processing solutions. If you want your business to thrive with the most advanced club management software, comprehensive payment processing, and customer service that is second to none, choose ABC Financial. Request a demo at www.abcfinancial.com.
Get ready for this week's bonus segment, your extra injection of information, education, and inspiration to strengthen your fitness business.
I have two pieces of exciting news to share with you today. Number one is that we're launching the Fitness Business Podcast Santa Sack. Now, if you haven't heard about this yet, it is a virtual Santa Sack that is chock full of discounts on products and services and offers from our wonderful podcast partners and suppliers from the fitness industry right across the world. From December the 1st, you can go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com/Santa Sack to see all the great offers that are available available. We are adding to it every single week, so make sure that you check it out. Once again, that is fitnessbusinesspodcast.com/SantaSack, and that launches December the 1st. The second piece of news I have for you is that I wanted to remind you all that you're invited to our next FBP family meetup, which is happening at FitX in New Zealand on Saturday, November the 25th. We're meeting at 5:50 a.m. at the front door of the AUT campus building. Everyone is invited to come along. We basically go for a walk for 45 minutes, and it's a great way to meet new people from the industry and get some exercise along the way. Now, to register for that walk, of course, it's free of charge. You go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com, and at the top of the page, you'll see a link to the FitX FBP Family Meetup. Click on that link and register your details there.
Precore Quickfire 5.
A little bit of a change this week. We don't actually have the Precore Quickfire 5 because next week's show is an In the Trenches interview with Scott Gillespie from Soccer, Sport and Fitness. I am really thrilled to bring you this interview next week because I talked to Scott about their 90-day Commit to Get Fit program, which is a comprehensive wellness program that focuses on education and behavior modification, which includes nutrition, weight loss, individual and group exercise programs, plus stress management. It is an absolutely fascinating chat, and Scott and his team have invested a lot in perfecting the program, and he is so generous in sharing insights into how they've made it such a great success. So that interview with Scott is going to be coming up in next week's show. Thank you so much for joining me for the Fitness Business Podcast. Before we finish off today, a reminder that all the resources, links, and transcripts for today's show can be found at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Thank you, as always, to all of our partners for their support and our foundation partner, Active Management. Go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com/active for a free business development ebook. That is everything for this week. I'll see you next week, and remember, what you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others.